Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for arriving into this space. Wherever you are joining us from, we invite you to take a breath, settle in, and arrive just as you are. My name is Stacy Gunther, and with my tech host, Adita Agrawal, we're so delighted to welcome you to session 18, From Shifted Reality to Stewardship, Ontological Agility, Perception, and Action. This is a joint session with two presentations. One is going to be by Gaëtan Mourmant and Elham Malik, and the other is by Magnus van Haaren. The session is part of the 2026 MSR Research Colloquium, of course, the theme of which is the mystical in research, dwelling at the threshold of knowing. And this is organized by the MSR Research Committee. We are well over halfway through this, and so I hope this is not just the first session that you've joined, but I hope it is one of many. Before we begin, a brief technical note. If you experience any tech issues, please do contact Adi through the chat and he will help you out. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our first speakers, Gaëtan and Elham. And with that, I'd like to introduce first Dr. Gaëtan Mourmant. He serves as the tech lead for the MSR division, and he is a Microsoft Excel MVP and a visiting professor at Business Science Institute, France. His academic work focuses on AI, decision-making, spirituality, and classic grounded theory. Dr. Elham Malik is a faculty member at VIT Velour and an organizational behavior scholar whose work examines self-managed organizations, workplace spirituality, and humanistic management, while actively serving the MSR division as a Fetzer scholar, a retreat committee member, and the current treasurer. And now, with that, I warmly welcome Gaëtan and Elham. Take it away.
You're muted.
Welcome everyone to this MSR Research Colloquium session. As Stacy said, I am Elham.
And my name is Gaëtan. And together we're going to present a session that sits at the intersection of lived experience, ontological philosophy and management, spirituality, and religious scholarship. The full title is From Mystical Experience to Ontological Shift, Maya, Devotion, and the Obstacles to Living a Changed Reality. And before we begin this session, will be both conceptual but also experiential. So we'll present a framework, share some of our experience, autoethnographic accounts, and we'll also lead some meditations. So we invite you to stay open throughout.
So here is the agenda of the session. We'll begin with the motivation behind our paper and the key questions driving our query. And then we introduce the key concepts, that is the mystical experience and the ontological agility, followed by our four-stage cyclical framework that we created with this research. Next, we ground the theory into two lived autoethnographic experiences, that is of me and Gaëtan, and discuss the obstacles to ontological transformation, and explore the balance between the stability and the openness to the experience, that is the spiritual experience. And we'll close with a short guided meditation. So we will begin with the key questions and motivations that inspired this research. But before we begin with it, we invite you to recall a mystical experience that changed your worldview ever in your life. And I invite you to please note down a few key points from that experience. We give you 1 minute for this. So we are done with 1 minute, and I hope you all came up with some experience that changed your worldview. So Gaëtan, can you continue with the questions?
Yeah, so there were a lot of questions that emerged as we were going through this work with Elham. So I'm just going to read them and maybe pause in between so we can reflect on them. Does mystical experience leads to enduring ontological change, or is that change often partial, interrupted, or resisted? So it's like the idea of time, how much the change will last, and we have several sessions around that already during this colloquium. Another question would be, how do prior ontological assumptions enable or constrain the very possibility of mystical experience? If we have some previous worldview that are going to slow us down to do those or experience those mystical experience. I remember in a group, fear was one of them, for example. What obstacles stand between a threshold experience and a genuinely transformed way of living? How do you translate those mystical experiences into your life, into your daily life? How can MSR scholars and practitioners cultivate ontological agility safely and rigorously? I think it's really the key concept of this presentation about agility, ontological agility. I'm coming from software. We have agility is a key word for software development. How do we translate that into an ontological agility? And finally, what are the implications for organization leadership, especially in the age of agentic AI? We're going to move to the next slide where we introduce a few of the key concepts. As I was mentioning, if we go at the core of what we found as being really the two key concepts to take away is the relationship that exists between mystical experience and ontological agility. And in the middle, there is two arrows coming from quantitative analysis. We don't know what those arrows are. There's a big question mark. We're going to try to explain a little bit of this, but really, it's really an open question. So, next slide.
Yes. So yes, here we come with our working definition of mystical experience. And a useful start would be the work by William James, The Varieties of Religious Experience of 1902. He identified the 4 distinguishing marks of mystical experience. That is, many of us, like in many of the, I will say, the events in research colloquium, people discuss the ineffability, noetic quality, and transiency and the passivity. So he considers most important are the ineffability and the noetic quality of the experience, the mystical experience. Because they are difficult to express in language, yet are experienced as conveying some genuine insight that or knowledge. That is not very easy to explain, but the knower knows that he knows. Then subsequent scholarship also added features such as ego dissolution, the sacredness, transcendence of time and space in the mystical experience, and a sense of contact with a deeper reality. So building on this literature, we define mystical experience as an extraordinary episode that can be voluntarily or involuntarily triggered, transient or lasting in duration, and might vary person to person, potentially lasting in the consequence, during which ordinary perceptual and cognitive frameworks are suspended or exceeded, giving rise to an encounter which, with a dimension of reality that resists the full articulation and carries the potential to transform one's fundamental assumptions about what's real and who oneself is, what the existence means to them.
So if we move to ontological agility, and somehow also connected to the neuroplasticity that was brought to the front of psychology in the last several decades. I think it's really the central concept of this session, the capacity to shift between, adopt, or simultaneously hold multiple ontological frames while remaining stable amid deep changes in assumption about reality, the self, and meaning. So how do we navigate those periods of massive waves of changes in our ontological framework of who am I, Or how do I interact with the world? What is the world really? So those are these type of ontological framework shifts that can be assessed with the idea of ontological agility. As we develop these skills of ontological agility, we can navigate through them. Next slide.
So now the experiential element. So then, we invite you for a cyclical meditation that will be facilitated by both of us, and Gaëtan will start with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Or maybe I can start. Okay, let me start.
Let's follow our guide.
Okay. So, yes. So first I will invoke, like, dear friends, please feel loved, and you are blessed with divine intelligence, divine love, self-love, and divine power. Please sit comfortably wherever you are. Allow your attention to arrive fully into this room. Notice the chair beneath you, your surroundings, the rhythm of your breathing. Don't rush into anything. Nothing needs to happen or be felt immediately. Gently bring awareness to the structures that make reality feel stable. Your name, your daily routines, might be your roles, your plans, or your assumptions about who you are and what this world means to you. For a moment, simply notice how much of the ordinary life rests on quiet agreements about reality. Ask yourself softly, what happens when certainty loosens its grip? Gently notice and observe, be still, and be aware. Allow yourself to remain there gently without rushing to close the uncertainty.
Now, rather than resisting uncertainty, allow curiosity to emerge. The search does not begin with answers, it begins with openness. Bring your attention inward. Notice subtle sensations in the body, warmth, vibration, tension, stillness, or movement. Just simply observe. Now, allow awareness to widen beyond the usual boundaries of self. Imagine consciousness as participating in a much larger field of existence. Allow your awareness to move gently through layers of being. Maybe it's human connection, animal life, the living earth, energy, atmosphere, presence. Very gently, be still, be aware, and just let it go.
Let the experience gently unfold. For a few moments, simply allow something to arise, perhaps a feeling, an image, a memory, a silence, a sense of connection, or perhaps nothing at all. Simply observe. Are there any shifts in awareness? Any moments in your experienced reality? Any shifts in your representation of reality? And now, gently ask yourself, what deeper grounding remains when familiar frameworks loosen? Keep breathing gently and try to meditate on it.
Very gently keep your expanded stage of awareness. At the same time, feel your breathing, feel the weight of your body. Keep your expanding state of awareness. Feel the room around you. Notice if openness and grounding can coexist. Continue experiencing. Notice if you can move from stability to openness without fragmenting. Take a deep, slow breath. And when you're ready, you gently open your eyes with a beautiful mystical smile.
So here we are with our 4-stage of cyclical framework. What we are trying to practice through meditation is this framework, and it is the central argument of our paper. We propose that mystical experience and ontological transformation are best understood as cyclical rather than a linear process. The cycle often begins with the ontological loss, that is, a period in which existing assumptions about reality, self, and meaning no longer provide coherence. This may arise through mystical experience, a life event, a sustained spiritual inquiry. This can lead to the mystical search, a process of seeking, questioning, and exploration. We suggest that this stage is enabled by the ontological agility, the capacity to loosen your attachment to the existing frameworks and remain open to the alternative possibilities. The third stage is the mystical experience itself, a threshold event that is often experienced as ineffable, noetic, and transformative. Such experiences can profoundly challenge one's existing ontology. The final stage concerns the outcomes. Some individuals might gradually stabilize a new understanding of reality and integrate it into everyday life. Others may struggle to integrate the experience and return the state of ontological uncertainty. Importantly, the stabilization is not the end of the journey. When individuals who have achieved a relative stable ontology may choose to re-enter the mystical search through the spiritual practices like devotion, curiosity, or a desire of deeper understanding. The new experiences may also challenge the existing assumptions and reopen the cycle. For this reason, we view ontological transformation not as a destination, but as an ongoing journey characterized by recurring movements between stability, disruption, search, experience, and the transient for a long period of time, maybe the stability in the experience. Yes. So now we move on to the autoethnographic grounding. So I will share my COVID experience during the COVID-19. It was an isolation period for me. Life, as for everyone, became unusually still. And for the first time in a long while, there was an uninterrupted time away from everybody, the people, the interactions, the noise, or the expectations at work, as well as the family. And the silence gradually turned me inwards. Meditation became more sustained and better. At first, it simply felt like a deeper reflection, but over the time, the ordinary perception itself began to shift. The familiar structure of reality, my routines, my identity, who I think I am, and even the sense of certainty attached to everyday life started feeling less anchored or less fixed. It was not an intellectual encounter with the idea of Maya or the philosophy or a doctrine. It was an experiential reality that I could perceive. And reality began with in a cyclical way. It was more fluid, almost dreamlike. And my mind was watching the constructed nature of ordinary experience and revealing itself by own, but I couldn't explain it. And with it came the fear. And the question emerged, what if the grip on the shared reality kept loosening. What happens when the frameworks that I normally keep in my life, they break, and I feel hard to actually adjust in the surroundings that I am in. So at the certain point, the experience no longer felt like something to push through or conquer. The decision was made not to go further into the sadhana or the procedures, and more into the surrender on the to the Almighty. That was my experience, and I will invite Gaëtan to share his experience. You are inaudible, Gaëtan. You are muted.
Thank you. In the interest of time, we're going to move straight to the last meditation because I think the experience is more important. Maybe you can just perfect. So
Yes.
the last meditation will be led by Elham as well.
So, yeah, we may best start the experience by Gaëtan. It would be a pleasure to listen to him because his experience was profound. And so we'll move on to the meditation on traversing the ontological layers. As he already explained what we mean by the ontological agility and moving between different frameworks at the same time, or keeping many frameworks together at the same time to perceive the reality. So I invite you all to this meditation. Please sit comfortably. Allow yourself and your body to feel soft and relaxed. Let your hands rest naturally, and take one slow breath in. And a slow breath out. There is nowhere to arrive. There's nothing to force. Only pure awareness. Begin by noticing yourself simply as a human being in relation to the other human beings. Bring to your mind someone you care about. Notice how easily emotion, presence, and meaning travel between people without even words. Notice that the connection itself is already mysterious and divine. Now gently try to widen your awareness. Imagine the world around you, the birds, the animals, the insects, all moving through this reality in their own ways. For a moment, suspend the assumption that consciousness belongs only to human beings. Try to turn inwards and simply ask, what does life feel like from another form of being? Try to answer this openly, not intellectually. Now allow your awareness to widen further. Notice the subtle atmosphere around, experience itself, the energy, mood, intuition, and presence. Simply notice. Now gently try to bring your attention to the physical world. A stone, a river, a mountain, and the earth holding it all, or beneath it all, and the akasha holding it all. Allow yourselves to feel the possibility that reality may be more interconnected than our ordinary perception suggests. Now, if it feels comfortable, invite a sense of guidance, perhaps a voice, an image, or a feeling of being accompanied by something wiser, larger, and more enduring than the individual self. Just notice it. Now gently begin returning. Feel your breath again. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Feel the room around you. Notice that you have not lost yourself by briefly loosening your assumptions. You are still here. Take one deep breath and return to the room when you're ready. Slowly open your eyes. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're just going to finish on this note. Thank you so much, everybody.
How lovely. Thank you so much, Gaëtan and Elham, for those two lovely practices and your presentation. Now I'd like to introduce our second presenter and speaker, Magnus van Haaren. He's a PhD candidate at Rotterdam School of Management, Erasmus University. His research examines how emerging technologies, including AI and decentralized systems, reshape governance, participation, and organizational decision-making. He describes himself as someone who defies the status quo and innovates where few have dared to go. Please, help me to welcome Magnus.
Hey everyone, I'm Magnus, a Dutch scholar speaking from Koshinga Ancestral Shrine. It has a certain historical root as well. So in 1662, Koshinga ended the Dutch rule in Taiwan. And in 1663, his son, Sheng Yun, built this family shrine. So I'm speaking in a threshold between Dutch history and Taiwanese memory, between governance and non-forcing, and between attention and action. My claim is simple today. Governance does not begin with decisions. It begins with what we choose to see. So Gaëtan and Elham has brought us closer into the living experience of a changed reality and ontological agility, and I pick up on that thread. I ask, when reality is no longer self-evident, what becomes a signal? What becomes noise? And what kind of stewardship becomes possible? I use Taoism deliberately. On one side, it represents my former research home, which is decentralized autonomous organizing. And on the other, it's Tao as a language of non-forcing. And I don't treat Taoism as a metaphysical claim, more as a governance stance. So coordinating without domination. Building structures that do not kill the signal they're meant to receive. So we all dream, but I do not treat dreams as proof about external reality. I treat them as field notes on perception, on their uncertainty. My reoccurring images are ordinary and exactly as anyone might expect, like a cave, a chair, a table, a siren, and a bird. Quite parsimonious, you might argue, and they show what happens before a decision hardens. They train our attention on what we should focus on. That is my micro foundation. So the pre-decision field, before formal choice, the body is already orienting towards something it perceives. Attention starts allocating. Signals are filtered. What is something worth tuning into and what is noise? And then a threshold appears. And within that threshold, we can decide to engage further. We can decide to withdraw. We can decide to lead or simply wait. And in DAO governance, we often study votes, how people vote through tokens and their rules. But the vote is usually late. It comes later. What arrives first is the signal. And Taiwan is not scenery here, even though I'm quite a Western and susceptible to the liability of foreigners. It is a discipline. So if you start walking around the streets, you notice rain, you notice scooters, you notice the temples, paper, Chinese characters. And they hold me in a place where meaning is present, but not mine to conquer. And the method is embodied restraint. So receiving without seizing, attending, not extracting. And this is where both research and mystical experience comes to life, where Taoism becomes a lived practice. So at 12:30 today, in Taiwan on the street, on the way to university, I encountered Liu Yunting. She was having a coffee, she was reading next to me. And I couldn't read the text, but after a few forcing myself to comprehend it, it just said sunflowers flickering, and a poem about beautiful Taiwanese words and 100 poem. And this is exactly a small field note. So poets meeting in motion when we're carrying our day-to-day activities, language and place reshaping perception before any formal decision is made. So now I'd like to ask you, involve you, and thank you for attending today, to close your eyes for 3 to 2 minutes. And if that feels comfortable, let the body arrive. In your first breath, try to take what is the signal. In your second breath, try to ask yourself, what is noise? And in your third breath, ask yourself, what chair are you holding that is not yours? Now try to come back to the room and open your eyes. If you have paper, that's great. I force myself to write in with paper nowadays, given that everything is agentic. And just write one sentence. So I already saw in the chat from Anand, Sanena is expecting mystical experience anti-ethical to ontological agility. Great question. So thank you for participating. And no explanation is needed. So if you'd like, you can say one word or on two voices in the chat, or mute yourself if you would like to share something. Feel free to do so.
Sound is very empowering, and it transports, it heals, it takes you to a journey. It also brings you back. So wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you, Anand. So I began with dreams, but the contribution is not about dreams. It's about the thresholds we all have before any action takes place. So when reality changes, it does not need to become certainty. It can become disciplined attention. So we often speak of bridges, guangxi, and they hold because it does not conquer either side. It exists without asking us to be there. Governance does not begin with decisions. It begins with what we choose to see. I'd like to end on that note, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Magnus. We'd like to invite in now questions and comments, anything for either presentation. This was a beautifully deep session, and I thank you, Magnus and Elham and Gaëtan, for this session. Just really so much richness and so much beauty. So thank you so much. And thanks for those of you who have joined the session, held space with us. We have just a few sessions left in our colloquium. I think we have 6 sessions left, believe it or not. So let me tell you what's coming up in an hour and 15 minutes. So we have a break now for an hour and 15 minutes, and then we will have our 3rd plenary featuring our keynote speaker, Marilyn Schlitz. Her talk title is Science from the Inside Out. After that, about 15 minutes after the close of the plenary, we'll move into a session with Debbie Rundlet, who is going to do a session on what she calls the formational set, an ontological field architecture for researching leadership transformation at the threshold of the mystical. And then Judy Neal will lead a session on the annual Promising Dissertation Proposal Award, where we will get to meet the winners. So we also hope that you will join our closing plenary, which is our last session, of course, where we will focus on integrating our experience together. So we look forward to seeing you in the coming sessions. And again, thank you so much for being here. You may certainly stay on the Zoom for the next hour and 15 minutes as we take a break, but you will be sitting in the waiting room, just so you know that. So thanks again for being here, and thanks again to these wonderful presenters.